Buckle in, sports fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show. The program will be starting in just a couple of minutes, so grab your popcorn and get ready to enjoy the show. While you're waiting, make sure you're following us on social media at WHBC Stream and staying tuned to WHBCStream.com. We're so glad to have you today on the program, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line on Twitter or call the show 352-639-0036. And thanks again for tuning in.
HBC. Well, it is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here on this Tuesday night at 10:25. You're listening to the William Haynes Show live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. Some not so great news, of course, to discuss tonight. I was hoping we'd be able to have the celebration of clinching the division title. The Mets thought otherwise, as they are kind of trying to cling on to whatever playoff hopes they have left. They defeat the Rays by a score of 5-2. The Rays drop to 36-20, and with a Yankees win over the Blue Jays tonight, the Rays' magic number to win the division stays at 1. So there's 4 games left in the season, so all the Rays need is a win or 1 Yankees loss. I know the number 1 seed is still in play. The Rays still do have a game-and-a-half lead over both the Oakland Athletics and the Chicago White Sox for that. So that's still in play, too. You want to talk takeaways from tonight? We'll get into all of it, as this is kind of the quasi-Rays post-game show. I think Cash is still trying to kind of find the lineup where he wants it, still kind of toying around with some stuff. Yandy Diaz and Choi, G-Man Choi, they're in Port Charlotte right now, probably getting ready, you would think, potentially for that 3-game wildcard set, and if not, for the ALDS if they make it that far. They did some live BP down in Port Charlotte in the alternate site, and ran the bases a little bit, so you would think that would give some pop back in the lineup. I'm not quite sure that's where the weakness lies. I mean, I like what Nate Lowe has done at first base. He went 0 for 4 tonight. I think maybe the bigger thing is what you're going to do at the leadoff spot, because we saw how good Yandy Diaz was leading off in the postseason last year. I'm not quite sure where G-Man Choi fits. I know Cash has put him at cleanup a lot, so maybe he would just be a clean swap for Nate Lowe. That's hard to say. Wendell had a couple of hits tonight. He is having a really strong finish to the season, and with his ability to play second base, third base, he can play shortstop, although unless they pinch hit for Adames, I don't think he will be doing any of that in the postseason, so that's good to see him hitting well. Willie Adames, speaking of him, it seems like he has a good day at the plate every other day. I think went 0 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts, something along those lines last night, and hit a home run, one of the 2 Rays runs, and actually gave them the lead in the second inning, and you thought maybe things were turning up. They were facing Seth Lugo, a reliever turned starter. He ends up going 6 1/3 of only 1-run ball. So I guess gave the Mets maybe more than they were hoping for. And then on the Rays side of things, for Blake Snell, his starts are awfully frustrating. He ends up going 5 2/3, 3 runs on 6 hits, strikes out 9, throws 108 pitches, which, looking back to his last start in Citi Field, that was 2 years ago during his Cy Young season. He set a couple of career marks there. I believe worked into the 7th inning, which was a career high, and also threw 112 pitches, which was a career high mark. So he only threw, I think, 70-odd pitches in his last time out because it was the 7-inning doubleheader game against the Orioles, and they liked the matchups with Castillo better. That's fine. He could have easily gone 7 with the way that he was pacing. So it was good to see that they didn't really need to build him back up. I believe this is the most pitches he's thrown this season, and the hope is he's going to be starting game 1, it looks like, of that 3-game wild card set. Did a little bit deeper dive into the schedule, so I have a pretty better idea of kind of where the Rays might be going. It looks like it'll be Blake Snell in game 1, which I like, and the rotation lines up that way. Glasnow in game 2, and then if they lose one of those games, it will be Charlie Morton going in game 3, which I don't love, but I think he's better than, say, a Ryan Yarbrough. I don't think Josh Fleming is going to pitch more than 2 or 3 innings at a time. So I like that for a couple of reasons, and we might save that for the end. Just want to let you guys know, a Rays postgame, if you want to call in and maybe share your thoughts about the Rays. I know there's a lot of frustration and a lot of things to be not so excited about. The way the offense is limping to the finish line is very concerning. But if you want to call in, maybe air your grievances, if you will, we have a line open for each and every one of you listening to the show right now. Number to call, 877-566-1020. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter. With you for about another hour or so, depending on how things go. Officially for the Rays, a 5-2 loss to the New York Mets. Over the course of the game, they scratch out 2 runs on 5 hits, no errors for the Mets. It was 10 hits and 5 runs for them. There was an error committed to them that allowed, I believe that came in the 7th inning, where that was the Rays' best chance. And, of course, Hunter Renfroe leaves the man in scoring position, as he has really tended to do in a rough debut season for him. Down in Tampa Bay. I'm not quite sure what his future is, but something we'll have to wait and see. Seth Lugo was the winning pitcher. Edwin Diaz got the save for the Metsies. Blake Snell takes the loss in 5 2/3 of 3-run ball. He drops to 4-2 on the season. You look at the lineup, the defensive alignment, the outfield from left to right, Randy Arozarena in left, Kiermaier in center, Brett Phillips, who's been getting some good playing time as of late, was in right, and then the infield from third to first, Wendell at third base, Adames at short, Lau played second, and it was Nate Lowe playing first. Michael Perez did the catching, and Yoshi Satsugo was the DH, and obviously Blake Snell the pitcher. And the way the lineup was structured, Satsugo led off, followed by Lau and Arozarena. Lowe cleaned up, followed by Wendell and Adames, and a bottom 3 of Kiermaier, Phillips, and Perez. A lot of guys that didn't get a hit. There was only 4 guys in the lineup that did. Satsugo went 1 for 4. Lau went 1 for 4, so there's your top 2 guys there. Wendell had a good game. He goes 2 for 4. His average is at 280, so I think he's really been a valuable asset for them this year. And then Adames goes 1 for 4 with the home run. But outside of that, guys not getting hits. Arozarena 0 for 4. Lowe 0 for 4. Kiermaier 0 for 3. Phillips goes 0 for 1 with a walk, and then he gets pinch hit for. The situation, I guess, made sense, and they got the righty-lefty fine. And then Michael Perez, not a big deal, was the catcher, went 0 for 2. And they pinch hit for him, and Kevin Smith came in to catch, so that told me that was just to give Zunino an off day. I know he's coming back from the oblique issue, so they want to get him eased in. I know that's probably going to be their number 1 catcher heading into playoff time. He catches all the pitchers very well, and he's a fairly good defensive backstop. The offense is a problem, although he can run into one. He's got more power, I would say, than any other catcher on the roster. I would say Perez and Smith maybe do a little bit better job of hitting for average, but in the playoffs, that if you can get it out of the park, that means a whole heck of a lot. So the lineup is tough. They go 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. Kiermaier and Renfroe both 0 for 1 and leave a total of 4 men on base. So, we were hoping things would change when it seemed like every night they would go 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position and leave more than 10 men on base. We were calling for change, and they did, and they found a way to change in an even worse way. So now, not only can they not move runners over still, but they're just getting a lot less men on base. We were applauding them really over the course of this season for their ability to work walks and get a ton of base runners. And then whatever switch flipped, and this lineup wants to be strikeout heavy and not get on base. They get a total of, it looks like, 6 base runners, 5 hits, and only a walk. It was Brett Phillips working that. So that is definitely concerning. Seth Lugo, I mean, he was a good reliever for the Mets last year, but by no means an absolute ace. He's not Jake DeGrom, who they faced yesterday, but he goes 6 1/3 and only 95 pitches. So he kind of tore up that lineup, I would say, in a way. So, and a couple of comments that Dave Wills and Andy Fried made on the radio broadcast, because I listened to that instead of the telecast guys, Dwayne Stats and BA. But Dave and Andy were mentioning, not only are they striking out a bunch, but it's not like they're making any contact either. Like, in today's game where it's all about the home run, the strikeouts make sense when it's just guys swinging for the fences and putting really good swings with the bat. Now, with the Rays, it's just a lot of half-hearted stuff, chasing stuff they shouldn't. Guys have had issues with that all year, but it seems like more like now they're not getting contact at all. And, if they're going to be striking out so much, you would think with good swings they'd be able to occasionally run into one, and that just really hasn't been the case. So a lot of things to be concerned about. I'm watching this play out, and I'm kind of likening it. There's a couple of caveats to it, but as I see it, you look back to a year ago, on the final weekend of the season, the Rays were in Toronto. So on Friday night, they win and clinch, and of course, with the champagne and the Budweiser in the locker room, partying like their lives depended on it, it makes sense that on a Friday night game, with the massive hangover that they must have had going into a Saturday day game, they looked terrible, and Sunday they looked bad as well. In a little bit smaller sample size, the Rays still have 4 games left on the docket compared to just 2, so make of that what you will. But I kind of liken it to, I guess in 2019 the concern was, well, they didn't quite finish off well, and then they go all the way across the country to Oakland in a 1-game playoff with the momentum not necessarily on their side. And it wasn't like the Rays didn't have anything to play for in those final 2 days. They were trying to play to get that wild card game down at the Trop. There was still something to play for, but they just didn't really have it left in them. I guess, for whatever reason, it took a lot out of them just to get to the playoffs, and they had overcome a lot in that season. And really same thing for the Rays this year. They still have something to play for. They've already clinched the playoffs, but the 1 seed is still in play. I don't think it's worth much because of the way the playoffs is going to be operating this year. They already have that 3-game set locked up at home. The only advantage of having a high seed when it goes to the neutral sites in either San Diego or Los Angeles is you get to bat in the bottom of the innings. And maybe you play the lower seeds, but that's about it. There's not as much value. And then, of course, the division is what everyone, the whole organization, the players, everyone wants to win that division. The Rays haven't done it since 2010. They only have 2 division titles in 22 years of history, so that would all be a big deal. So they do still have stuff to play for, but they have just absolutely limped to the finish line. I mean, they had a decent series down at Baltimore. Well, I say decent. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they won 4 or 5. I'll have to take a peek at that. I actually have the schedule in front of me. Yeah, they win 4 or 5 in Baltimore, but, I mean, a lot of those games were kind of crapshoots. I mean, the doubleheader, 2-1 win, 3-1 win, 2-1 loss. So the offense really has been stagnant for quite some time, and you look back to even what they did before then. They struggled against the Red Sox and the Nationals, teams that are under 500, and that leaves you basically with a lot to be concerned about. And I'm having a hard time buying into it or not. The team looks bad, but last year we saw them be able to flip that switch. Dave Wills mentioned, he told a story about a White Sox team of old that ran into that same thing. I believe they got no hit towards the end of the season, and there they go limping into the playoffs and get beat by a pretty good Orioles team at that time. I don't recall which year that was. But it's a lot to be concerned about. I don't know how much to take stock in these games. I think really, and I've been saying it for a while, the wins don't as much matter now, but you want to get the team right. The lineup isn't going to quite be what it would have been or maybe will be at some point. Meadows won't be coming back unless the team makes the World Series, and even then, I think they'll just want to roll with the outfielders they have if they're good enough to make it that far. But you're missing Yandy Diaz and Ji-Man Choi. Yandy Diaz, I think, completely changed the look of the lineup with from the right-handed standpoint. He worked a ton of walks, got on base, something the team is struggling to do right now. And then Ji-Man Choi, who just always seems to come up with a clutch hit, but did struggle certainly at times this year. So I think Cash is just trying to give guys playing time right now. A Rosarena kind of guy who's burst onto the scene, you would think with the loss of Meadows, he's going to be playing a role on the team. Guys like Brett Phillips potentially try to get him right. Setsugo, it looks like Kevin Cash wants to have him lead off because he's been doing that pretty much every day for the last week or so with the loss of both Diaz and Choi. And again, that's of course subject to change. It looks like they're coming back at a pretty good rate. I think both dealing with hamstring issues, and they both could potentially be back for the playoffs, which starts next Tuesday. So that's all subject to change. And so I think at that point, this is a different team than we're going to see. And, Cash is going to be a lot more aggressive with the pitching moves. He left kind of Curtis into rot tonight. I think that was just because there's no need to burn up guys. You're not going to use an Anderson or a Castillo or even maybe a Drake in this spot. You need to have them ready. So you leave Curtis in after Snell, and I think for Snell, that was one of the bigger storylines as well because you want to get him right. And I mean, let's be honest, ever since Blake Snell got stretched out in mid-August, he's been the same guy. He's a guy that will pitch 5 1/3, 5 2/3. And it's not that he doesn't have the stuff to get in further. It's just, and I talk about this pretty much every time that he starts, every bump day, if you will. That's what they like to say. He goes on the mound, and for whatever reason, I don't know why. You chalk it up to uber competitiveness, whatever. He wants to strike out every batter that he faces. And it's not just that. He doesn't want people to make any contact off of him. So he throws these sliders, these curveballs that are very good pitches, but he throws them at such an extreme kind of point where they're bouncing in the dirt or things like that. And I've been saying it for the past couple of weeks. I said, watch, these teams are going to roll out a scouting report to beat Snell, and it's just to spit on the sliders in and the curveballs down and all that stuff and just sit on the fastballs. And that's exactly what the Mets did tonight. And that's certainly concerning going into playoff time. He gets charged with 3 earned runs in 5 2/3, throws 108 pitches, so I think that's a good sign that he's stretched out, and he's he'll be able to throw 110 pitches in game 1 of the best of 3. But I honestly, going into playoff time, best case scenario, this is not a guy that's going to throw 6 or 7 innings. As much as he said that he wants to do that, that's not going to be the case. He's going to give you, if everything goes right, probably 5 innings of scoreless ball. And at least, I'm talking best of 3 right now. I think where you go with that, you're going to have Snell in game 1, Glasnow in game 2, and if there is a game 3, it would be Morton. It sounds like Cash is going to give him the nod over Yarbrough, which I understand after what Morton did in both of his starts last playoffs, and both of them were in elimination games, and he got the win in both of them. So fine, you go with him in game 3 in another elimination game. But look, Snell in game 1, he gives you 5 scoreless. I would imagine both Nick Anderson and Diego Castillo are going to pitch in all 3 games if it goes 3, and they're going to give you an inning apiece. So Snell goes 5, Anderson gives you 1, Castillo gives you 1, and then you have 6 outs to cover, 2 innings. So I think the 3-batter minimum, especially in the playoffs with a team like the Rays that likes to be creative, that rule is going to rear its ugly head as one of the worst things that baseball has done in recent memories. It's just such a horrific rule, and the explanation behind it hasn't even panned out. They said they wanted to shorten the time of the game, but they found the games are actually longer now because of there's more mound visits, because you have to get pitchers ready to face guys that they wouldn't normally face, and all that kind of crap. I think it's totally bogus. But that's going to be the case, your 3-batter minimum. So it's going to limit your creativity over the course of the 2 innings. But hey, maybe Fairbanks gets a couple of outs. You look at the roster, I'm not quite sure. They're going to have a 28-man playoff roster, so they're going to have some tough decisions to make. But maybe Drake gets a couple of outs. You got Sheriff, Loop from the left side, Thompson from the right side. So if all goes according to plan, outside of the regulars that are going to go between the starter and Castillo and Anderson, 6 outs to cover. And you think that would work. And my reason for saying that is, say to Blake Snell, fine, do whatever you do. If you want to strike out everyone, fine. But you're only going to go 5 innings and probably throw 110 pitches in the process. And then you'll just go to the pen. That's not going to be sustainable when they get to the best of 5 and the best of 7, because you're going to need those relievers, and they're not going to be able to go every day because there's no travel days. So with the ALDS, 5 games in 5 days. With the Championship Series and the World Series, well, not the World Series, that they'll have off days, but for the ALCS, 7 games in 7 days. So, Nick Anderson is not going to pitch 7 days in a row. That's just not going to happen. He's not going to pitch 5 days in a row. I'd be surprised if he pitched maybe 4 times in a 5-game set. So, I think for Snell, for the best of 3, works fine. You get into those other series, it's a little bit concerning because, look, if he was a middle-of-the-road guy, if we're talking about Ryan Yarbrough in the playoffs, if he can get through 5, great. And he's a guy that gets outs early in counts. But for Snell, what makes you so frustrated is his stuff is so good. There was a reason he won the American League Cy Young in 2018, a 21-5 record. He is that guy. He's a rare guy that has I would say 4 A-plus pitches. A fastball, at 95 plus, that has some movement on it at the top of the zone. He can put it in a couple of different places. Works a really nice changeup off of that, and then he can throw sliders into righties and away from, into righties and away from lefties, and a curveball that gets a lot of swing and miss stuff too. But those sliders, those curveballs, you have to establish them in the zone from time to time, and it just seems for whatever reason Snell is terrified of hitters making contact off of any pitch. And then you look at guys like Yarbrough who don't nearly have the stuff that Snell does, and he's like, I know they're going to make contact. I don't have that stuff. I'm not going to try and strike everyone out, but I'm going to get weak contact, whether the ground ball or the fly ball. And if Snell could adapt that mindset, he would be such a better pitcher, but he doesn't want to. And you think the New York Mets do a good scouting report? Wait till you get to October and you're facing playoff teams that have even better coaching staffs and better scouting departments and things like that. Talk about putting together a plan on how to beat Snell. The blueprint is there. Spin on the fastball, watch the curveball go in the dirt, and just sit on fastballs high and away like Robinson Cano did tonight, and I believe Pete Alonso, I want to say, did that as well. So to make a long story, I guess even longer as I've done, that's my concern with Snell. I think Game 2, and we'll probably have this conversation 100 times in the next week. For Glasnow, I like having him go Game 2 instead of Game 1 because he is such a win or bust kind of pitcher because he only has 2 pitches. He's not Snell. He doesn't have a 4-pitch mix. He's got a fastball that's very good and a curveball that's very good. But we've seen when the curveball is not there, he can't find it, and he's just a fastball pitcher. Good luck getting outs in the postseason. That's just not going to fly. And then you put yourself potentially in a situation where you've got an aging Charlie Morton on the mound in an elimination game, which in a best of 3, although at Tropicana Field, is certainly not what they want, either against a really good Blue Jays team that gave them a ton of trouble, or an Indians team that's got one of the better rotations out there, and a lot of good power hitters as well. So the concern is there. We'll talk about it as it keeps happening. So there you go. Kind of my thoughts, bigger picture on the game. We'll give you inning by inning as well. Again, number to call, 877-566-1020. You have any thoughts on the Rays? You also want to talk Bucks? Want to talk Lightning? I'll take those calls as well. It's a Tampa Bay sports show. But right now we are doing Rays post-game, the 5-2 loss to the Mets, combined with the Yankees win, was not able to lower that magic number of 1. So the Rays hopefully will go out tomorrow against the Mets and maybe try and lock up the AL East and then pop the bottles then. Who knows? Certainly not in the locker room, but I think you know what I mean. Top of the first, Seth Lugo on the mound for the Mets, and the Rays go down 1-2-3. Setsugo, Lau, and Arozarena, not what you want to see. Not super competitive at bats either. I mean, they all went 4 or 5 pitches, but not great. And the top of the lineup, especially in the first, got to be better. It's totally different now without Meadows leading off or without Diaz leading off. It's going to be structured differently. Yoshi, after tonight, goes 1 for 4, a 200 average. That's not who you want hitting leadoff, but he had experience doing it in the Japan League. I guess he's comfortable doing it, whatever. If that's who they're going to roll with, especially against right-handers, I can see it. And that may be where they go. Against lefties, however many they face, it'll be Diaz to lead off like they did against Sean Manaea, the lefty in the wild card game, and then against righties, which is the majority of what you'll face, you put Sasugo leading off, or potentially the lefty Choi as well, I would imagine would be the thing. And then Lau will probably hit second in most of the games, and then however they mix it from there. But bottom of the first, Blake Snell on the mound, about a 20-pitch inning, strikes out Jeff McNeil, walks J.D. Davis. That was hard to see. A lot of pitches, as I'm looking, just non-competitive, just way out of the zone, and it was super easy for him to sit on. So that's a base runner. And then it was Dom Smith striking out. Frazier grounds out to end the inning, but it was about 20 pitches for him in the inning. Top of the second, Lugo against on the mound. Lowe flies out, Wendell strikes out, but then Willy Adames coming back on an 0-1 count. A 92-mile-an-hour fastball that pretty much catches a lot of the plate. 395 feet to right. Got the facade on the right field grandstands, however you want to say it. Got a hold of that baseball, and it was an easy pitch to hit. But credit Adames for doing so. And an early lead is going to be such a big part of the Rays' success potentially in the postseason. So Adames gives them a 1-0 lead in the second, and then Kiermaier lines out to end the inning. Bottom of the second, it was Cano getting things started right away. It was the 6th pitch, and we saw him work, I think, an 11-pitch at-bat against Nick Anderson last night. He had a couple of really deep foul balls where you fell of being a home run. And then it was a 94-mile-an-hour fastball that was up, and away, as Dave Wills described it, and he turns it 368 feet to left, again with nobody on base to tie the game at 1. I believe the stat was that was the highest pitch, I believe, hit for a home run this season, something along those lines. So they were mentioning that, obviously not science stealing, but that he almost kind of knew what was coming. And again, the way I talked about the predictability of Snell makes sense. Like I said, spit on the slider, like all the Mets hitters did, especially the ones that were easy takes, and then the curveball as well. And then he's going to throw you a lot of fastballs up and away, and you turn on him. And Cano did. So that basically takes the lead right back, 1-1. Then he walks Alonso, but he was ahead of him. He was ahead of Alonso 0-2, and then throws him 4 straight balls, and that was the case. It wasn't like I talk about every night with looking at the starter's first pitch strike to batter's face ratio. Tonight for him, Blake Snell faced 23 men, threw a first pitch strike to 15 of them. That's a pretty good average. He got ahead of hitters, and then he just let him back in accounts, which is so frustrating. And I know Blake Snell can often be his toughest critic, and that's great. You hope, let's be honest, it's not going to change. This is who Blake Snell is, as I've kind of been trying to allude to. And I guess the hope is that you'll be good enough to kind of get away with it. So then he walks Alonso, strikes out Rosario and Heredia. Alonso gets the second on a wild pitch, and then Robinson Chirinos walks, and guess what? Same thing. 0-2 count on 2 taken fastballs, and then you throw him a slider curve, and a full count fastball that's just out of the zone, and you walk him on 4 straight balls. So there's the frustration. McNeil singles, and this could have bring in a run, but Kiermaier, of course, being the best center fielder in baseball, still at age 29 or 30 that he is, gets an assist, an absolute laser to home plate. Michael Perez doing a good job of getting the tag down, and Pete Alonso, the polar bear, is thrown out at home to keep it a 1-1 game. So that inning could have been a lot worse, but he threw over 30 pitches in the inning, and he had 50 pitches thrown after 2 innings. So then you're going, oh boy, so much for a dress rehearsal for game 1 of a best of 3. Not a great game, and again, so frustrating. You're ahead of hitters 0-2, and you throw him just if he could just catch a little bit of the plate with this off-speed stuff, it would work so much better, but he doesn't want him to make contact with it. He wants the punch-outs. It's like he's addicted to him or something, and it doesn't work. It didn't work for him tonight. But good on Kiermaier, good play, getting out of the inning. Top of the third, Phillips strikes out. Perez strikes out. We go back to the top. Tsutsugo gets hit. It's a single on the 6th pitch of the at-bat. It was a curveball, that was high. So, good on him for getting that pitch. And then Lau grounds out to first to end things. Bottom of the third, this is where Snell kind of got into a groove. Got a 1-2-3. Got J.D. Davis, Dom Smith, and Frazier. He got 2 strikeouts in that one as well. Top of the fourth, a 1-2-3 as well for the Rays. They were kind of trading some of those at that point in the game. It was Arozarena, Lau, and Wendell recording outs against Seth Lugo. Bottom of the fourth, Cano grounds out for the first out of the inning. And Pete Alonso on the first pitch a 95-mile-an-hour fastball that caught too much of the zone. I think he was trying to go high and away to the right-handed bat. And again, 432 feet to right into the bullpen. So that gave the Mets a 2-1 lead, and of course they would never look back from that. Rosario grounds out, Heredia strikes out to end the inning. Top of the fifth we go. Seth Lugo still on for the Mets. Adames grounds out, Kiermaier strikes out. Brett Phillips works a 2-out walk in the 7th pitch at bat. So he took some good pitches. There he goes. He gets on base. That's fine. And then Michael Perez strikes out to leave him there. Bottom of the fifth, Snell gets another 1-2-3. Chirinos hits a single. And McNeil hits a single. But then I think this is wrong. Yeah, J.D. Davis strikes out, and then McNeil gets caught stealing second. It was some variety of a double play that got him out of it. So there it was. I believe Michael Perez getting a couple assists in the inning, but of course ESPN hanging me out to dry with the whatever incorrect. Top of the sixth for the Rays, another 1-2-3. I messed up again. But 3 batters come up. Satsugo grounds out. Brandon Lau reaches on an infield single, but then he gets doubled up on a ground ball by Arozarena. So there you go, a double play there to eliminate a 1-out base runner. Bottom of the sixth, Blake Snell comes on. I think it was close to 100 pitches, but again, they're wanting to stretch him out. But he doesn't finish the inning. He gets a couple of outs. Dom Smith doubles to deep left to start it, and you thought maybe then they would just take him out because then the righties were coming up. No, Cash lets him in, keeps him in, figured out. I mean, 6th inning and a 2-1 game on a potential AL East clinching night, so they leave him in there. Frazier strikes out, Cano grounds out. That moves Dom Smith to third base. Then they bring in John Curtis, who immediately gives up an RBI single to Pete Alonso, who hasn't really had much going for him all season, but of course tonight plays pretty well. So that made it 3-1 Mets, and then Rosario grounds out to end the inning. Top of the seventh, as we're now in the late stages. Seth Lugo starts the inning. Again, he went into the seventh. Nate Lowe grounds out. Wendell singles to shallow center. And then it was Adames grounding into a fielder's choice. I don't know why they say it like that. It was an infield single for him. I guess they give the error to Frazier, but whatever. It's 2 men on with 1 out. They take Lugo out at that point, which makes sense. You got the tying run at first base. A bullpen that's not been so good for the Mets, but they bring in Justin Wilson. And then they run a double steal during that bat to Kevin Kiermaier. Wendell steals third. Adames steals second. It helps that Robinson Chirinos dropped the pitch. Maybe he got a little bit excited to try and get one of the outs. But the Rays run a double steal. That was their only 2 of the night. The 8th for Wendell, the 2nd for Adames. Again, the running Rays continue. I'd imagine that's going to be potentially a trend come playoff time in a week's time. So then runners at 2nd and 3rd with only 1 out. You've got the tying run at second base. And then they put the contact play on. Kiermaier ground ball. They go easily to home, get Wendell out by a mile. So with 2 outs, it's runners at the corners. Adames is able to sneak up to third. Renfroe hits for Brett Phillips. Makes sense. You want to get the righty on lefty. Fine. Adames scores on a wild pitch. Kiermaier gets to second. So that makes it a 3-2 game. Cuts the Mets lead to just 1. And what do you know? Kiermaier, he'll score in a single. You tie the game with a base hit. No, Renfroe strikes out swinging. Seems like every time. Renfroe has been very, very frustrating this year. He's batting 153, and that would just, of course, it wouldn't be anything else but that. It was on a 2-2 count. Strikes out swinging on a cutter up. Just couldn't put the barrel on the baseball. It got a lot of the plate. Again, just couldn't make contact with it. So there you go. Game could have gone a lot differently, but you leave the tying run again at second base. Bottom of the 7th. Renfroe goes into play right field. John Curtis remains on. And what do you know? The former Ray, the ex-Rays, have been slaughtering the Rays this year. Guillermo Heredia, 414 feet to center. Who knew he had that in him? But turns on a 3-2 pitch, a slider that just hung. So he was able to put a blast on that. That got the run right back to make it 4-2 Mets. And then Curtis gets Chirinos, McNeil, and Davis. A couple of strikeouts mixed in there as well. Top of the 8th, it was Kevin Smith pinch hitting for Michael Perez. They had some other guys on the bench, I guess, but they go with the catcher to make the clean swap. I don't know. But Kevin Smith in a pinch hit situation strikes out swinging. Tsutsugo strikes out looking, and as does Lau. So Shreve for the Mets, who I'd never been really familiar with. He got his first hold. Chasen Shreve, he's a 30-year-old out of Las Vegas, so he strikes out the side there in the 8th. So the Rays are down to their final 3 outs. And then bottom of the 8th, Curtis stays on. I think Kevin Cash didn't really want to use any of his relievers, so be it. Curtis is on, hits Dom Smith by a pitch, then Frazier singles, then Cano singles to load up the bases. The pinch run for Cano at first. Alonso grounds into a fielder's choice that scores Dom Smith to make it 5-2. And then Ahmed Rosario grounds into a double play. So John Curtis does get the ground ball to get out of the bases loaded. No out situation, giving up only a run. I mean, I guess you'll take that. That's fine. And then top of the 9th, Edwin Diaz on for the Mets. He gets his 5th save of the year. He pitched pretty well last night, I believe, as also. Arozarena strikes out. He had a very tough night. He goes 0 for 4. So he strikes out swinging. Nate Lowe lines out. Wendell reaches on an infield single, but that was it. Adames grounds out to end things, so they lose 5-2, and disappointing, I would say. It's just, I don't know. They had a chance to clinch. They're going to clinch. The magic number is 1. They'd have to lose the next 4. The Yankees would have to win the next 4. And even if that happens, it doesn't really matter. They just want to hang the banner and have the bragging rights, whatever. You go 8-2 against the Yankees in the regular season, all for naught, I guess, if you can't win the division. So I get the point of all that, but it was a rough night. A lot of strikeouts for the Rays. They had 16 in both of the last 2 nights. Was the first time in franchise history they've done that. Tonight, they strike out a total of 12 times and get a total of only 6 base runners, so not great. Only had 2 runners in scoring position all night. It was the 7th inning, and it was Renfroe just leaving him out there. So in a postseason spot, I know I don't want to see Renfroe out there in a pinch hit situation, but so be it. The story with him, and we've talked about it, he's a guy that needs everyday at-bats. That was kind of the story on him in San Diego, was he played in there in the outfield every day because he's a good defender, a good power bat, but he's going to be a 220 hitter if he plays a full season and will hit 45 home runs. That's what he is. But if you want to be like the Rays and play a multitude of different outfields, and maybe Renfroe will play every third day, get in a pinch hit situation occasionally, it's not going to work. And the reason behind that is such a heavy power swing. I mean, Renfroe is a big dude. Like, we're talking football player type frame at NFL. I mean, he's 6'1", 220. He's a big guy. And he puts a lot of power behind that swing, but a lot of that involved is rhythm and practice and every day getting those bats on the baseball. But if you don't give him everyday playing time, he's not going to be able to zero it in, and it's going to result in a lot of strikeouts. So they had the game tied if he could just get a hit, and he can't get it. I understand baseball is a game of failure. You go to the Hall of Fame if you fail 7 out of 10 times. I get the whole story on that, the cliche, but he's been horrible in that category. Every game that he's played, it seems like he's striking out with men in scoring position, so that sucks to see. Who knows? I know if the game was tied, the pitching would have been a lot different. Maybe Snell comes out a little bit earlier, and then you play more of the A bullpen, but I think that works out for Cash in some ways because he wants to save some of these guys, but fine. That pretty much wraps up the Rays post-game show. Didn't get any calls yet, but I'll still take them at 877-566-1020, number to call for another 20 minutes or so. When we come back, we'll preview tomorrow's Rays and Mets game. It'll be Glasnow v. Waka. And then really the only other thing we have on the docket, we'll recap a Week 2 slate of NFL football. We already talked about the Bucs win yesterday, but all the other action that went down. So that's all we've got for the remainder of the show. Again, number to call, 877-566-1020. We'll take a short break. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, sports fans. William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBCStream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, When all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCstream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
Sports Radio 1019 FM. Sports Radio 636. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 11:03, we are back on the William Haynes Show again. Final 20 minutes of the program. Number to call is 877-566-1020. We didn't give you a sports update, but I know that the Lakers are the Lakers are down in the fourth quarter to the Denver Nuggets. The score on that one right now at the start of the fourth, Nuggets 93, Lakers 77. So I know the Lakers are up 2-0. So maybe the Nuggets, they've come back down 3-1 twice in this playoff. So I know the Lakers are the favorite to go to the finals, and they probably will. But the Nuggets putting up a decent fight, and they'll face the winner of the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics series. The Heat looks like they're going to take that one, but they're only up 2-1, so that series could still sway either way. We usually say this to the end of the show, but I'll keep it with the Rays stuff and then transition to the NFL afterwards. Previewing tomorrow's Rays contest, 7-10 against the New York Mets. Tyler Glasnow, the righty, on the mound against Michael Wacha of the Mets, another righty, guy that was really good years ago for the Cardinals. I remember NLCS MVP in 2013, that year that they went to the World Series. I believe that's right, against the Red Sox, if I'm not mistaken. Not so good anymore. 1-3 with a 6.75 ERA. Tyler Glasnow 4-1 with a 4.21 ERA. So this is Tyler Glasnow's dress rehearsal, if you will. He's going to start Game 2 of that best-of-3 wild card set in Tropicana Field. So his last time out against the Orioles in Baltimore goes 5 innings, an earned run on 4 hits, gives up a home run, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts, 95 pitches. So fine game, I guess, from him. He's gone deep a few times. He's gone 7 innings twice. He's got a 6-inning game under his belt. So I think that's kind of where they'd rather have him. That would be huge. If they could give him maybe 6 or 7 of 1 or 2 run ball in Game 2 of that series, that would be big. And this is his final tune-up. We know what he is. He's a 2-pitch pitcher. He occasionally mixes in the changeup. That's like about 2 or 3% of the time. So fastball, curveball. Let's see if they're both going to be on tomorrow. That's going to tell us pretty much what we need to know. And for Michael Wacha, his last time out, he's only gone 5 innings in a game twice. He's pretty much a 3 or 4 inning guy. Doesn't do too well. But his last start, not horrible. 4 innings against the Phillies, an earned run on 5 hits, a home run, no walks, 3 strikeouts on 65 pitches. So I guess he is fully stretched out. I think it's just they don't really have him that deep in a ball game. So that would be a good time for the Rays to get to Michael Wacha, and they could probably clinch. I guess with righties, they're going to go heavy lefties. I imagine it's going to be Setsugo leading off again. Lau will be in the order unless they want to give him a day off, although the Rays are off tomorrow. So I would imagine they'll have him in the lineup. Nate Lowe will probably clean up. I know Wendell will be in the lineup. Kiermaier, all the lefties will be in, and probably a similar lineup to today because I think Cash has kind of found what he likes. Setsugo leading off, Lau cleaning up, and then Adames somewhere down towards the bottom. Same with Kiermaier. Kind of those crucial guys. Looks like that's what he's going to do. And then as far as the bullpen goes, they've got everyone in play. I guess clinching night, they may use Anderson or Castillo. I think they would prefer not to. Fairbanks a candidate. He hasn't saved a game this year, so if they want to break that record, break the tie of the record, and set it for most pitchers to get a save in a season, they could trot out either Peter Fairbanks or Aaron Loop. Those are the two guys on the active roster that don't have a save. So who knows if they go with that? But pretty much everyone in play. John Curtis, the only one who isn't, as he went a couple of innings tonight. So Pete Fairbanks, we'll probably see him at some point. Same with Oliver Drake from the righty side. If they need a lefty, probably Sheriff or Loop, as I mentioned. And again, Castillo and Anderson potentially in the mix, but I think they want to be as careful as possible as they can be with him. And that about wraps it up as far as baseball stuff is. And programming note, well, actually, we'll save it. We're not going to be on the air Thursday. I'll just let you know now because the Rays are going to be off. Don't have a ton to talk about. There's going to be a Lightning game tomorrow, Game 3. That series is tied 1 game apiece, so that's pretty crucial. Obviously, whoever wins that is going to take a lead in the series, and with the momentum, who knows. The Lightning trying to win their first Stanley Cup since 2004, their first time in the Cup final since 2015 against a pretty good Stars team that really has found themselves during this playoffs in the bubble. So, not going to be easy by any means, but they looked really good. In Game 2. Limited the penalties a little bit and was good on the power play. Steven Stamkos may come in at one point. I was told the way it works, to get your name on the Stanley Cup, you have to play, 40 games in the regular season. You have to play one shift to record a postseason appearance. So Steven Stamkos has not yet appeared in the playoffs. When they were first coming back to try and get ready to go in the bubble, he got injured. So he's coming back. He's practicing, I think, with the team at a pretty close to full extent. So, he's going to play a shift at some point in the series to try and get his name on the cup. It would be wrong, I would say. I mean, even if he doesn't contribute a whole lot, he's the captain of the team, and I think that enough, and to cement the legacy and all that good stuff. So, he's been a huge figure in Tampa Bay sports since he's been here, and that would be great to see his name on the Stanley Cup. How bizarre. What if I told you that the Lightning win the Cup, Steven Stamkos' name is not on it, and he was still on the roster? That would be totally bizarre. So, close the books on all that. Final 15 minutes of the show or so, we're going to tell you everything that happened in the NFL in Week 2. We already talked about the Bucs game, so I won't really touch on that. If you're curious, you can find it on Spreaker.com where you're listening to this. You can pull it up. Went in depth on a lot of stuff about the Bucs. I guess I'll touch on it again. Brady looks good. I like his chemistry with Mike Evans, as well as Justin Watson and Scotty Miller. Chris Godwin was out with concussion protocol stuff, so the offense is going to be obviously a lot different with him in it. Not targeting a lot to the tight ends. O.J. Howard dropped a pass in the red zone, and we heard nothing but stories about, Brady, if he doesn't trust you, won't throw you the ball, especially in the red zone. That's a big deal. I think the running game has a whole new identity. We know what Rojo is at this point. He's the same player. I don't know. He's a guy that's going to run for 3 yards per carry in a game. But it's fine. Can do different things. Can catch the ball a little bit out of the backfield. But we saw the other 2 running backs, the more recent additions, get involved a little bit after a more full week of practice. Neither LaShawn McCoy or Leonard Fournette were awfully active in Week 1. They were in Week 2. It looks like Shady McCoy, as we imagine. He's going to be the pass-catching kind of dump-off back. And then Leonard Fournette, boy, did he ice the game in the fourth quarter. The defense gets tired. That adds a whole new element to this Bucs team if they can ice a lead. It seemed like last year they jumped out at, they were up at half, just like the Bucs were on Sunday, 21-0, and they just couldn't ice it. They couldn't keep a lead. They couldn't run. They couldn't take the clock, and James would turn the ball over, that kind of stuff. Then the other team would come back. But now, with Brady, guy that takes care of the football, Fournette, a freight train that's hard to stop, especially when a defense is tired, and fresh legs because he doesn't have to be the lead back. Oh boy, that's going to be very tough to stop. So, saw a lot of good things. The defense looked very good in the first half. The defensive backs is still not very good, if we're going to be honest. Carlton Davis gets an interception. The safety, Jordan Whitehead, kind of lucks into one. But Sean Murphy-Bunting did not look good at all, and they're leaving guys one-on-one on the outside because of the pressure that they're sending on pretty much every play. So you live and die by that. A lot of it was just kind of garbage time stuff too. So who's really to say? And the hype train is just going to, more full steam ahead if it could possibly get that way. Tampa Bay is going to be raging, I'm sure, after week 3. They open at 6-point favorites in Denver against the Broncos. That's at 4:25 next week. And we'll preview that game on Friday. But Drew Lock is out, the starting quarterback. Their top receiver, Cortland Sutton, is out. Von Miller, we already knew, was going to be out. So a team that's 0-2 after a tough game against the Steelers. Jeff Driscoll, you may know him, a former quarterback of the Florida Gators. He's not very good, and he did some things, but I think a guy like that, Todd Bowles is just going to pressure the living crap out of him. So you like how they line up there, and they'll probably be 2-1, and again, all the hype will start to begin. But other scores in week 2. The Browns and Bengals on Thursday Night Football. I didn't watch that. I was on site covering a soccer game for Florida State. I'll just go and plug it now. If you're interested in a daily podcast about Florida State sports, anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, FSU Sports Daily. I'm going to record after I get off the air here and talk about the Florida State-Miami game. That is not so good looking for Florida State. But on Thursday night last week, Browns and Bengals, Browns 35-30. It was a weird game. Bengals ended up coming a little bit back in garbage time. Mayfield for the Browns, that's going to be their formula to win. He throws only 23 times, completes 16 of those passes, just over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Didn't get sacked, so they took care of him. But then Nick Chubb, 22 carries, 124 yards. And Kareem Hunt, 10 carries, 86 yards. So that's what the Browns is. They're one of those old-school power run teams. And then for the Bengals, ouch. Joe Burrow in his second game in his NFL career throws 61 times. What is Zach Taylor thinking? 37 for 61. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And you see why. The running game did not get going. Really, the only guy they give handoffs to, Joe Mixon, 16 carries, 46 yards. So under 3 yards a carry. And that's about it. Obviously, neither defense is great. Neither team is great. Bengals, they're pretty much buried, I would say, at 0-2. And I mean, well, it's early. It's a 16-game season. And then the Browns hanging around at 1-1. The Sunday slate, the Bears and Giants. It was the Bears 17-13 over the New York Football Giants. Saquon goes down with a torn ACL. There was a ton of those in week 1 or in week 2. Excuse me. It's unfortunate. The G-men did pick up Devontae Freeman, for former FSU running back, so they're gonna have someone to fill in. But I mean, 0-2 already. They're not a great team, and take Saquon out. I mean, that's a bad offensive line. Daniel Jones throws 40 times. Completes 25 of them, 6 yards per attempt, no touchdowns and an interception. Not great. Gets sacked 4 times as well, as did Mitchell Trubisky. So not a lot really going for either offense. I don't think the Bears they're probably the worst. They've got to be the worst 2-0 team in the NFL right now. Kind of luck into a game in week 1 against the Lions where Matt Patricia just can't close the game. And then I think dating back to last season, that was the last time the Lions had like a 2-possession lead late in the fourth quarter and they blew it, something along those lines. And the Giants 0-2, they're not great. Defense I think is good, but the offense has got to do more than what they've done so far. So that's about it for that. The Cowboys 40-39 over the Falcons. The Falcons had a 20-point lead at multiple points in the game, and we all know how they handled that. Of course, they gave it away. Matt Ryan, 24 of 36, 273 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, we're talking 8 yards per attempt. Gets sacked only once. It's funny, 0-2 Falcons, you would think maybe aging Matt Ryan. No, he's actually looked very good. Obviously, if they get the number 1 pick, they're still going to take Trevor Lawrence because you have to. But Matt Ryan, not bad. It's just the defense. I think Matt Quinn, Dan Quinn? It's Dan Quinn. He's going to be on his way out after this year because he's a defensive head coach, and their defense has been bad. I think gave up 40-plus points in both games, so he might get fired mid-season because I know he was on the hot seat even last year, so who knows. Calvin Ridley, the receiver, we know he's given the Bucs trouble. 7 catches, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. Julio Jones, silenced, 2 catches, 24 yards. We'll see them twice this year, so that hopefully will be 2 wins. And then for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, 34-47, 450 yards and a touchdown. It's only 2 sacks total in this game, 1 of each quarterback. Ezekiel Elliott, 22 carries, 90 yards and a touchdown. And then the receivers, the two main guys, CeeDee Lamb, the rookie, 6 catches, 100 yards. Same for Amari Cooper, 6 catches, 100 yards. So I don't know. The Falcons blew it, including an onside kick where you don't have to wait for it to go 10 yards if you're the receiving team, but they let it go 10 yards, and then the Cowboys recovered it, and they get the long field goal. So that was kind of just embarrassing to watch. Obviously, we don't mind the Falcons losing, but that was certainly hard to watch. Bad coaching for them, certainly. The Cowboys, they're 1-1. Should have been 0-2, to be honest, and that would have been great to see all the obnoxious stuff about the Cowboys. But, of course, now they're 1-1, and they're going to the Super Bowl, according to their fans. So that's fine. They get back on it again. Packers and Lions. Packers, 42-21 over the Lions. Not too much to say. The Lions, I guess people kind of thought would be a playoff potential team. I don't know. They're 0-2. It makes sense in Lambeau that it was going to be, tough sledding for Detroit. I don't know. Hard to say. The running game couldn't get going. Only 90 yards total on the ground. Stafford, 250 yards, a touchdown, a pick. Gets sacked 4 times, so there you go. The Packers' defense was very good last year, including getting pressure. Rodgers, another good game. 18 for 30, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And Aaron Jones, the running back, 18 carries, 168 yards, averaging about 10 yards a carry, and he scored twice. There was a long of 75 where I believe he did the Lambeau leap with no fans in the stands. That was pretty cool to see. And he was also their leading receiver with 68 yards. So not as much going in the way of receiving, but they score 42 points. So heck, must have been enough. Lions go to 0-2. Packers to 2-0. Another interesting game, the Titans 33-30. I had this as kind of a lock for the Jags to cover. I think it was Titans minus 7.5. And they end up losing but still covering. Minshew throws a lot more than he did in week 1. That's certainly not the game plan. 30 for 45, 339 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. So I don't know. The James Robinson, the undrafted rookie running back, another good game, 16 carries, 100 yards. I don't know. Not a whole lot going through the receiving point of things. And then, high-scoring game not expected between these two teams. I definitely would have had the under. But Ryan Tannehill, this is what the Titans do. 18 for 24, 239 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. So I'd imagine a lot of goal line kind of stuff from him. And then Derrick Henry carrying the rock, 25 carries, 85 yards. Only 3.5 yards a carry, but was good enough to get the job done. They just barely edge him out. The Jags outscored them 13-3 in the fourth quarter, so it was the Titans holding on for dear life there at the end. But they moved to 2-0 in an AFC South that looks very, very winnable. The Texans do not look good at 0-2, although they've had some tough draws. We know with the Jags, I don't know, they thought they were going to be tanking, and then the other team in the division, in the AFC South, that would be the I don't know why I'm blanking on them, but not a bad division to be in. And I'm sure the Titans will probably win it again. The Colts, who are a good team, so who knows what that'll be. And we'll move to that game next. Colts 28, Vikings 11. Ooh, the Vikings do not look good at all. And Kirk Cousins, the man, I don't know, I was going to say the however many $1 million man, but I'm not quite sure how much he's making. 11 for 26, 113 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks. One of the worst quarterback games we've seen through 2 weeks. Running game couldn't get going. Cook, 14 for 63. Not too much to say. They look very, very bad at 0-2 for a team that I guess had Super Bowl aspirations. They won a playoff game last year before getting kind of rolled over in Levi Stadium in San Francisco in the divisional round. And for the Colts, they get a win after a tough loss for them in week 1, playing a lot different style. Phillip Rivers, I think, threw more than 40 times in week 1. Here, he goes 19 for 25, so uber efficiency, 215 yards. That's about 9 yards per attempt. A touchdown, a pick, 2 sacks. Kirk Cousins was sacked 3 times, if I didn't mention. And then with the starting running back out, I'm blanking on his Marlon Mack out for a while. It's going to be Jonathan Taylor, the rookie, who I watched a lot at Wisconsin. 26 carries, 100 yards, so about 4 yards per tote and a touchdown. So, fantasy owners, whatever, that's fine. Not too much else to say. Dominant game for the Colts in their home opener, so that's good for them. They advanced to 1-1. I'll move ahead quickly with some of these other games. Bills 31-28 over the Dolphins. The Dolphins, let's be honest, they're not a great team. I don't know why Fitzpatrick threw almost 50 times, but he goes for 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And then for the Bills, Josh Allen, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. So really a quarterback duel in some ways. Neither team getting a lot going on the ground. So I don't know. I think for Bills, a defense that's supposed to be a little bit better, 28 points to the Dolphins, not great, but they're 2-0, and they're, for the first time since week 4 of 2017, I believe, they are sole owners of first place in the AFC East. So good for the Bills in upstate New York. Also, the 49ers, 31-13. The story of this was just so many injuries for the Niners. 2 of their defensive ends going down with injuries. It was, let's see, Solomon Thomas tears his ACL right after the other guy, Bosa. I don't know why I blank on his first name, but one of the Bosa brothers, for Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas, 2 top 3 picks, I want to say, defensive end. They both tear their ACLs about a couple minutes from each other, so that certainly hurts. And then Garoppolo goes down, I guess, with an ankle thing. So Nick Mullins takes over for him, enough to win. I mean, the Jets, probably the worst team in the NFL this year. Not so much in the tank for Trevor because Sam Darnold is the quarterback of the future. He looked not bad. Only throws for 180 yards, but that's a bad football team around him. Look at Frank Gore, 21 carries and 63 yards. The 37-year-old is still doing his thing, so that's kind of cool to see for the Jets. And also an interesting storyline, the Niners, which makes sense. They're playing the Giants, so it makes sense to get them out of the way now in MetLife. So it's the same stadium, and they'd put in a complaint to the NFL, the league office, about the turf because I guess they're blaming the injuries on that. A lot of injuries in week 2, to be honest, but the Niners losing a lot of key cogs. I kind of expected they were going to take a step back. It's a lot easier to make that judgment now with all the injuries. Nick Mullins will be fine in that offense. I also, of note, with Jimmy Garoppolo as a starting quarterback in the Kyle Shanahan era, they win 80% of the games when Garoppolo starts. When he doesn't, 30%. So, that may make a difference, but they're a decent football team. They may still make the playoffs, but the Seahawks and the Cardinals and the Rams too. Man, the Rams have come back. We'll talk about them next. 37-19 over the Eagles. A couple storylines, I guess. The Rams are back. I guess maybe one of the things that there's been whispers about, now that he doesn't have to answer questions about how many carries Gurley gets with all that injury stuff, arthritis in the knee, whatever, he's gone to Atlanta. And now it seems like Sean McVay's free to do what he did in year 1 when he took him to the Super Bowl. And boy, they're rolling really for the first time since that Super Bowl loss. So Goff, 20 for 27, 270 yards, so about 10 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And then on the ground, they split. Darrell Henderson gets 12 carries, Malcolm Brown 11. They get a total of about 200 yards on the ground. So really getting their thing going. So good win for them. For the Eagles, not so good. Wentz throws 43 times, just under 250 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. In another note, they're looking too much into it, but there was a drive where Wentz is walking off the field after a failed offensive drive in Philadelphia, and the fake crowd noise, they're booing him, and everyone's like, oh, look. And that is trademark Philly. There's no fans, and the home team is still getting booed. So kind of funny, but I don't know. So the Eagles 0-2 after a really rough week 1 where they blow a 17-point lead to the Washington football team. So not quite sure what to make of them. That's a weak NFC East. Wow. The Eagles at 0-2, the Giants at 0-2, the football team at 1-1, and then the other team that I'm blanking on that's going to win it, I'm sure, the Dallas Cowboys at 1-1. So who knows? It's wide open. But the Rams at 2-0, they may end up winning the NFC West. If it's going to be a battle again between them and the Seahawks. That'll be fun to watch those 2 games this year, as it really always is. The Steelers 26-21 over the Broncos. Not too much to say there. Steelers are back for sure. Roethlisberger 29-41, 300 yards, 2 yards and a pick. James Conner adding 100 yards on the ground, and they have one of the best defenses in the NFL. We mentioned with Drew Lock going down early in the game. He only threw 5 passes. He's going to be out for 3 to 5 weeks. So in comes Jeff Driscoll. He looks fine, I guess. I'm going to have to go back and watch the film and see kind of what they do. It's going to be different having a week's worth of practice with him versus thrust into the fire. But 18-34, 250 yards, a touchdown to pick. Melvin Gordon adds 70 yards on 20 carries. Cortland Sutton, their leading receiver, he's out for the year with a torn ACL, so that makes it a little bit easier. Again, Bucks are 6-point favorites. Between you and me, I'm not sure if it's legal to give betting advice. I think it is. I'd be putting down a few shekels on the Bucks -6. If we're going to be honest, it is in Denver, but not a whole lot of fans there and all that kind of stuff. Broncos are out, down and out at 0-2, and all those injuries. Yikes! Not to mention they play in a division with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Cardinals 30-15 over the Washington football team. Trying to move a little bit quicker here. Haskins, I don't know, fine game. 19-33, 250 yards, a touchdown, and no picks. Gets sacked 4 times against a good Cardinals defense. Not a lot going on the ground. They have a good receiver, Terry McLaurin, but that's it. Not a lot going outside of that. They were down 17 points again. They were not able to come back this time. A Cardinals team that I love. They're now 2-0. Kyler Murray, 26-38. About 300 passing yards. Also, he had 70 on the ground with 2 touchdowns. So what am I saying? Including along at 21. So, I mean, talk about a guy living up to the hype. I was talking to a buddy about this. Really the Bo Jackson of our generation. And I know he was on the cover, the same cover that Bo Jackson, shirtless with the shoulder pads on and the baseball bat. I get it, but a guy that was a top 10 pick to go into the MLB, and he would have been a good baseball player. And instead, he opts to go to play another college season for Oklahoma. Wins the Heisman, is the number 1 overall pick, and he's a darn good quarterback too. So he can do it all. Certainly, DeAndre Hopkins takes a bit of a step back, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. They score 30 points, 8 catches, about 70 yards. And a couple of guys after that. They've got a good receiving core. Andy Isabella, I know, is a speedy guy in the slot. Christian Kirk is a good outside guy, and Fitzgerald towards the tail end of his career. I thought this was maybe his last year, but he may try and hang on because this is going to be an awfully good Cardinals team. He's 37 years old, so but he can still play for sure. One of the best hands in the NFL. And the defense for the Cardinals, I'm sure, was fine. The Washington football team, they dropped to 1-1, but again, as we mentioned, a wide open NFC West NFC East, sorry. Now an AFC West matchup. It was the Chiefs in overtime, 23-20 over the Chargers. I had this game on, kind of the storyline, a heart issue, I believe, for Tyrod Taylor. And it was hospitalized. I guess it was an injury in practice, and they found out at game time he wasn't able to go. Justin Herbert gets thrust in, their top 10 quarterback selected out of Oregon. If the Bucs didn't go the Brady route, I would have liked to see them trade up and get Justin Herbert. I liked him a lot out of the draft, kind of a John Elway type to me. He said he found out about 20 seconds before kickoff, so no time for jitters going up against the league MVP and the best team in the NFL, probably in the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't know. He looked good. 22 of 33, 300 yards, about 10 yards per attempt. That's a big stat for me. Yards per attempt is big because are you going down the field, that kind of stuff. Completion percentage plays a role. A touchdown, a pick. The pick you just threw against his body, and Tony Romo made an excellent point, is that's a mistake you have to make because you have to learn from it. And there he goes. I mean, I'm sure he did it at Oregon to success, but this is not the Pac-12. This is NFL football, and made a mistake there when he could have tucked and ran it for 10 yards. So the Chargers had this game in their back pocket at home in SoFi against the Chiefs. They can't bring it home. About 200 yards on the ground, so that was good. Keenan Allen gets about 100 yards. Same with Hunter Henry, the tight end. So they had some stuff going, and then for the Chiefs, they were down for most of this game, and of course what would it be if Patrick Mahomes didn't come back? Threw about 50 times, 27 for 47. 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They only ran Clyde Edwards-Helaire 10 times for 38 yards. So the Chargers defense, give them credit. I mean, they had held the Chiefs at the end of. They gave up 6 points in the first half to the Chiefs, and then going into the fourth quarter, it was 17-9. So I don't know. The Chiefs, they put up 11 unanswered, or I think in the fourth quarter, yeah. In overtime, the Chargers get the ball first. They punt it. And the Chiefs get a field goal. Harrison Butker, one of the best in the NFL right now, nails a pretty deep kick. So he goes 3 for 3. I believe that the long of 58 was the game winner. So I don't know. The Chiefs 2-0. Chargers 1-1. We know the Chiefs are going to win the division. Chargers, maybe a playoff team. They look so much better with Herbert. at the helm instead of Taylor, but Anthony Lynn said he wants to return to Taylor, so I don't know what to make of that. Other teams in the AFC West, the Broncos aren't going to do anything, and I don't know about the Raiders this year. I kind of have to wait and see. The Ravens 33-16 over the Texans. Texans, tough draws. The Chiefs on the road, and then they get the Ravens team at home. So they're 0-2 in an AFC South. That's going to be a battle, I think, between the Colts and the Titans, if we're being completely honest. Lamar Jackson, they certainly played their game. 18 for 24 did the Ravens. 200 yards, touchdown, no picks. Does get sacked 4 times, but that's an awfully good Texans pass rush. About 200 yards on the ground and 40 total carries. Lamar Jackson got more carries than any of the running backs, 16 times for 54 yards. I believe sacks are counted in that as well, so I don't know. Not a lot going through receiving. Their leading receiver, Hollywood Brown, 5 catches, 40 yards. And then for the Texans, not a lot going. Deshaun Watson, 25 for 36, 275, touchdown to pick, was also sacked 4 times. And this is kind of where you see it come into play. They were awfully one-dimensional. The only running back to get carries, David Johnson, 11 for 34. So there you go, 3 yards per carry, and Watson had 5 for 17. Brandon Cooks, I kind of forget that they have him. Is that the Brandon Cooks that I'm thinking of? It is, I believe, yeah. I totally blanked that he went to the Texans. 5 catches, 95 yards. Randall Cobb, wow, so they've got some interesting receivers. 5 catches, 60 yards. So, I don't know. Texans not a good team. They play a really good Ravens team, and the result is as expected. A couple more games here, just 2 left, and then we'll get off the air here. The Seahawks 35-30 over the Pats. Boy, was it an awfully good game. Went down to the wire. The past 3 meetings between these teams end up on the 1-yard line, and it was the Patriots this time at the 1-yard line, and it was a quarterback keeper for Newton, and he stuffed at the goal line. But really, an instant classic, I think, in some ways. 2 teams that will probably be playing significant January football. Start with the Pats. Cam Newton, this is a different Patriots team. I mean, come on. Cam Newton, 30 of 44, 400 passing yards, a touchdown, a pick, gets sacked only once all night. And he's also their leading rusher. 11 carries, 47 yards, including 2 on the ground. So, a different team. Again, this is not your run up the middle and out of the eye and checkdowns. This is Cam Newton is going to run that Carolina offense when he was at an MVP level. Wow. Julian Edelman coming into his own. 8 catches, 180 yards. So, in 8 catches, you're averaging 22 yards per, man. And they've got some rookies. N'Keal Harry looked good. 8 catches, 72 yards. Demir Bird, 6 for 72. So they've got some guys doing some things. Former Florida State tight end Ryan Izzo, 2 catches for 20 yards. So that's not bad to see. Not a whole lot of defense for the Seahawks. Russell Wilson, 21 for 28, about 300 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. I mean, he's got to be in the MVP conversation one of these years. Chris Carson goes about 20 for 70 yards. I don't know. The receivers, they've got good receivers. That's what we know about them. DK Metcalf and Lockett, Tyler Lockett are pretty good. And again, not a lot going for either defense. We know with the Patriots, their defense gets better as the season goes on. So at 1-1, they're not a first place team in the AFC East. That would be the Buffalo Bills. And the final game of the season, or of the week, I should say, thankfully not of the season, the Raiders of Las Vegas in the home opener on Monday Night Football, 34-24 over the Saints. I was doing a show as that game was going on, so I didn't get to watch much of it. But Drew Brees does not look too good. 26-38, 300 yards, a touchdown to pick. But had another bad interception this week. Didn't do much against the Bucs either. I don't know. We may see Jameis Winston in the in what do they call it? New Orleans, the Big Easy. Is that what they call it? I believe. I don't know. Alvin Kamara, 13 carries for 80 yards. 2 touchdowns. He's also their leading receiver, 9 catches for 95 yards. So that's kind of their game. I don't know. They scored 24 points. They should have had a lot more against a very bad Las Vegas defense. And for Las Vegas, Derek Carr, who's now I think started more games at the quarterback position than any other in team history. I believe past Ken Stabler, and it's going to pass them and some other marks as well coming up here. Under John Gruden, Derek Carr is 28 of 38. About 300 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Was sacked 3 times. And then on the ground game, this is what they are. Josh Jacobs, 27 carries, 88 yards. I mean, if you're used to watching the Bucs back in the mid-2000s with Cadillac Williams and some of those guys. Pittman, John Gruden, that he's still running the same offense that he was in 2005. He's going to give a guy 30 carries, and they were still somehow able to pass 40 times as well. So, I don't know. They just probably had a lot of possessions in that game. Their leading receiver, the tight end, Darren Waller, 12 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Not a whole lot going. The other Hunter Renfrow, the receiver from Clemson, catches a couple of balls. That's it. I don't know. They've got a collection of guys. The rookie, Henry Ruggs, 1 catch for 4 yards, so that's probably not as much as they like. And Jason Witten, why is he still playing in for Las Vegas? 1 catch for 3 yards. I would say go back to the Monday Night Football booth, but I really don't want him to because I didn't enjoy that experience at all. Derek Carr fumbled twice, lost one of them. I don't know. The defense Saints have a good defense, I would say, but did not play well. And for the Raiders, that's kind of what they are. Pretty good offense. They've scored, I think, 34 points in 2 games, both of them. So they're 2-0. And I forget, they're tied for first place with the Chiefs in the AFC West. That's not going to hold up, but still, there you go. So there you have it. Week 2 in the NFL, awfully interesting, and it'll be the Denver Nuggets winning Game 3, 114-106 over the Lakers. So the Lakers still lead that series 2-1. I'd imagine the Lakers are still going to take that series, but who knows how that's going to go. We'll keep our eyes on it. Tomorrow, Rays are in Mets at 7:10. It'll be Tyler Glasnow in his final dress rehearsal of the regular season going up against Michael Wacha. A Rays win or Yankees loss tomorrow will clinch the AFC East, and that's all fun and great. Can't wait to potentially talk about that as well. Lightning Game 3 over the Stars. That series is tied 1 game apiece, so that's a crucial game for them as well. That's going to be about it. We'll be on taking your Rays calls. Lightning may mix in a little bit of Bucks in there also. So, again, great time to be a Tampa Bay sports fan. There's a ton of stuff going on. And as always, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC